Alright guys, so I never did the recording for factoring day 2, so I'm going to quickly go through that. So today's focus in our little flow chart is over here on the trinomials where they have a coefficient. Okay, so that's going to be your AC method. But in order to do AC method, you have to know how to group things. So first we're going to talk about grouping. So the steps for grouping are group the first two terms, group the last two terms, factor your GCF out, and then your answer becomes what's on the outside and what's on the inside. So I have an example here. It says 12a cubed minus 9a squared plus 4a minus 3. So we're going to group the first two terms, we're going to group the last two terms. And when I say grouping, I mean put it in a set of parentheses. So then we want to factor a GCF out. Okay, so the GCF of 12 and 9 is a 3. And then on the a's, you want to pull the smaller a out. So I'm going to pull an a squared. And this means that I'm dividing these by 3a squared. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 3 minus 2 is 1a. 9 minus 3 is, or 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then the a squareds cancel. On the second set, 4a and 3 have a GCF of 1. So I'm going to pull a 1 out, and that's going to leave me with 4a minus 3. So then the last step says what's on the outside becomes one answer, so 3a squared plus 1. And then what's on the inside becomes the other answer, so 4a minus 3. And that is grouping. So we have another example here, and it says 5n cubed minus 10n squared minus 3n plus 6. So we're going to group the first two, group the last two. So I have 5n cubed minus 10n squared. I'm going to find the GCF of those two. So 5 and 10 have a GCF of 5. And then I pull an n squared out because that's the smaller one. So then I divide by 5n squared. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1n. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Oops, I didn't mean to cross those out. But the n squareds do cancel. On the 3 and the 6, I'm going to pull a 3 out. So I pull a negative because my leading coefficient is negative. So I'm pulling a negative 3. So that leaves me with n minus 2. So remember, what's on the outside becomes one answer. And what matches, and in grouping, the matching there should be a piece that always matches. And that becomes the other factor. So then that brings us to the AC method. So I have three terms, ax squared plus bx plus c. I can't just go ahead and find two things that multiply c and add to b since you have this a term now. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply a and c, and then you're going to find two numbers that multiply to ac but add to b. And then we're going to replace b with those two numbers, and then we're going to group to factor it. So I have 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. So the first step says multiply a times c. This is your a, this is your c. So ac is 6x squared. And I want two things that multiply to that, but I want them to add to my b term, which is 5. Okay? So I could do 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. This is 7, and this is 5. So 2 and 3 are the pair I want because they multiply to 6, but they add to 5. So what I do with the 2 and the 3 is I'm going to replace that 5 with those two terms. So 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 3. We're going to group the first two terms. We're going to group the last two terms. So the GCF of the first two is a 2x. So when I pull a 2x out, that leaves me with x plus 1. And the GCF of the second two is 3. So I pull that 3 out, which leaves me with x plus 1. So my answer is what's on the outside, so 2x plus 3. And what's on the inside, x plus 1. Okay, so I have 30x squared minus 4x minus 16. So this one's a little different because if you look at all three of those terms, they all have a 2 in common. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the GCF of 2. So we pull that 2 out, and that leaves me with 15x squared minus 2x minus 8. So once I pull the GCF out, now I'm going to do AC method on what's inside. So I multiply 15 and 8, and that gives me 120x squared, and I want to add to 2. Well, those are going to be pretty close numbers if I want to add them to 2. So factors of 120, you could do 2 and 60, but that's not even close. I could do 3 and 40. That's not going to be close. I could do 4 and 30, still not close. I could do 6 and 20. We're getting closer, but still not quite. I could do 12 and 10. I think that's where it's going to be. Because this actually, I'm sorry, should be a negative 120 since the 8 was negative. So, like, you can go through and, like, change your signs on them or whatever. But if I do negative 12 and 10, that gives me a negative 2. And then if I switch my combination, that gives me the positive 2. So I want this set. And that's going to go in for the negative 2 here in the middle. Oh, I'm sorry. I want the negative 2 set. I want this set because I need to add to negative 2. I really suck. So I'm going to put this here in the middle. So I get 15x squared minus 12x plus 10x minus 8. I'm going to group my first two, group my last two. So the GCF of 15 and 12 is a 3x, and that leaves me with 5x minus 4. And the GCF of the last two is a 2, and that leaves me with 5x minus 4. So my answer is the 3x plus 2, which is on the outside, and the 5x minus 4, which is the matching part. And then don't forget that GCF we already pulled out of 2. And that's it.